Once again, it's that time to get real with your guy, Ronald E. Smith. And my guest today, he needs no introduction, but what kind of person would I be if I didn't tell you what he's done so far? He's a writer, actor, voice actor, one of the founding fathers of TeamFourStar. But before all that, he's just a regular dude doing what he loves. Who I could be talking about? I can only be talking with Lanipator, also known as Nick Landis. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
This day's been going good so far, so I can't complain. But I'm just happy that we're here. We're gonna just have a good talk.
Hell yeah.
So, like I say, on Getting Real, the whole point of this show is we get hardworking people. We tell their stories about where they've been, where they are right now, and where they hope to be in the future. And that's what we want with you right now, man.
Ambitious. I love it. Always love looking on the introspective side of everything. Where would you like to start? Would you like to start at the beginning, the future, or the middle?
I mean, let's just go where it all began, because I'm already confused on where you're from. Because one place tells me you're from Cali, but then another says you're from Plymouth, Minnesota. So where were you? Where were you originated from?
So I was born in Torrance, California, which is actually where the Tor part of my name comes from. The first three letters of the city I was born. Lived there till I was about, I don't know, like 3.5 or so. Basically made it partway through preschool, and then my dad got a radio broadcasting job out in Minneapolis, which took us up to the city of Plymouth. Beautiful town. I spent pretty much all of my formative years there, going to school through the Wayzata school system, and yeah, that's basically where I'm from. Like that's the conflation between the two cities, anyway.
Because I was like going back and forth. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Three different sides telling me where you were from. I'm like, which one's the place? I have no idea. But that's cool, though.
I'm sure a number of them say I'm from Dallas too, because that's where I currently reside after deciding to move here on my own.
But see, that's cool though. So your dad was a broadcaster?
Yeah. He worked in the radio business. Started off at RKO back in the, I want to say, mid to late 70s. Eventually, the Children's Broadcasting Group brought him up to Minneapolis to work on the station Radio Oz, where he oversaw a lot of its productions. I can't remember his exact job title. Eventually, Radio Disney came in and just kind of crushed that competition, though. Unfortunately, the mouse devours all.
That's like an endless story. That's a fact. Ugh. But that also then leads to this, because with what your dad did, were you always then interested in doing stuff with your voice, or did that just come along?
It's hard to say, because I did do some radio spots as a child, little bit commercials for things like chocolatey frosted flakes are totally cool, and like local businesses and stuff like that would advertise on the platform. So it would be silly to say that didn't put a little bit of influence, but the biggest influence I think that was played on my childhood in terms of falling in love with the idea of voice acting was a little computer program called, God, I think it was, what was it? 3D Movie Studio.
Oh,
it's like way back in the 90s, my first desktop ever. I would play the hell out of that game, create my own little stories, and I had that little piece of shit microphone that came attached, like, the thing that was on like the little plastic stand that was probably made out of like 2 copper fibers and filaments in order to record a voice. Made it sound, everything sounded like 16-bit crunch. And I'd create my own little stories on that. I think that's what really fueled my creative side as a child, that kind of eventually blossomed into a love for voice acting, which exploded when I was in high school. I got into the theater program at Wayzata High School my sophomore year, and the second play I was ever in was the musical Little Shop of Horrors,
Oh,
in
okay.
which I played the voice of Audrey 2, the plant, the primary antagonist of that play. And it was the first time getting up on stage where I didn't have to go into makeup. I didn't have to do shit. I just got to stand backstage, hold on to a microphone, and wait for my cues. Like I'd be sitting backstage, just waiting on like, okay, when do I get to talk? Blah blah blah. Okay, that scene's happening. That scene's happening. Sitting there with my my Nintendo DS playing friggin' like I think it was a Game Boy Advance at the time. But I was playing like Supersonic Warriors, just sitting there waiting.
You're bringing
okay,
it back. Oh, my goodness.
Absolutely. and I'm just waiting on my cues. I'm like, okay, time to go. Feed me, Seymour. And I loved it from there on, and I just kept going. Eventually, I injured myself playing rugby my senior year of high school. Kind of left me in a pretty bad place. I broke my back. Wasn't able to do any of the sports and stuff that I liked doing. Nor was I able to do any of the plays either. Any of the any physical activity. At which point I discovered, one late night, not having anything to do, Martin Little Karibo Billini's Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series, and I fell in love. Like with just like the fact that somebody was able to slap all this together using the animation, and they just did it. And then I found Moscow X's and Vegeta 3986's Naruto the Abridged series, HBI 2K's Berserk Abridged, and I'm like, holy shit, okay, I want to do this too. And I picked up my DVDs of Yu Yu Hakusho, ripped them to my computer, and I made episode 1 of Yu Yu Hakusho Abridged like sometime within the next couple of days, and the rest is kind of history from there.
I want to just take a 2 steps back to when you said
Sure.
you injured yourself on rugby. Now, because it's like a domino effect, to what led to what the future was going to start to be, so in that moment where you were at that place you work, you couldn't play sports and you couldn't do theater anymore. So
yeah, I couldn't go to prom. I couldn't do like jack
you missed
all.
prom too. Oh, that was
I
that.
did. Not that I was incredibly popular with the ladies in high school, but you know what? It still sucks not to be able to go.
No, because it an injury like that, any other injury, it stops you from enjoying the last bit of high school to have fun. It stinks.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't imagine when that time where you were, because I'm guessing that you were just locked in your room and just fooling around watching stuff.
Pretty much. I needed the assistance of a cane to get around because, after I broke my back, obviously I needed like a little brace for a little while, but it also kind of ruptured / herniated a disc in my lower back. So even then, I was kind of moving around with extreme discomfort. I blacked out a number of times when I sneezed. Like it's not a fun time in my life. But you're right in the fact that moment, which looking back on it, in that exact moment was probably some of like the darkest times I had been through in my personal journey, led to something so explosively transformational in my life that I can't imagine what would happen if I hadn't. And to the point that I'm actually very thankful that I broke my back in my senior year of high school at this point in my life.
So after you found their channels, and then you said, I'm going to do Yu Yu Hakusho. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Of all the animes, and granted, look, ain't nothing wrong with Yu Yu Hakusho. Let's just get that straight out there.
Dude, come on. It's a fucking bomb-ass show.
Exactly. So I got to know, what made you pick that one of all the other animes?
I mean, practicality speaking, it's because I actually owned the DVDs. But the reason I owned the DVDs is because it was easily my favorite shonen show. Like a lot of people, I got introduced to anime by the concept of anime through Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z.
Right.
And, I love Dragon Ball Z. Hell, Dragon Ball Z has probably been one of the most influential shows on my entire life for obvious reasons. But Yu Yu Hakusho was different. It was kind of the punk rock to Dragon Ball Z's generic pop rock, and okay. I just loved it. I loved the characters. I loved Togashi's way of, writing a compelling villain that is believable and somewhat relatable at the same time, but also like incredibly threatening. And I absolutely love that show. Also, when I later discovered it, Hunter x Hunter, also really fucking good.
So then, with what you did with it with that abridged show.
Mhm.
When did you decide that, oh man, like I actually like really enjoying doing all of this to the point that you wanted to be at the level of the people that you were watching?
Well, it started off like, because back then, I think I was one of the first three like abridged shows to like really take off. It was Yu-Gi-Oh, Naruto, Yu Yu Hakusho, and people were like familiar with Berserk as well. It was kind of like those four floating around as to like what would be called like the first generation, quote unquote, of abridging. So I was kind of like floating around that realm. I was never going to be as good at editing as Masako was. Masako, he was like throwing his like Photoshop skills in there. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not using any like thing really special to edit this shit. I have like a video editor back then called Pinnacle Studio. It's basically baby's first movie maker, where it even has like a big flashing, if you want to record your own voiceover, click this button on the screen. So I do that to record my voiceover over the clips. I just loop the clip so that the mouth would be flapping. That's pretty much everything I did, because I had like little to no technical expertise when it came to editing back then. And I threw this stuff together. The thing that people kind of glommed onto were the fact that I could, like, my voice sounded somewhat like Justin Cook's representation of Yusuke Urameshi, and I could do a pretty damn decent Chris Sabat Kuwabara impression. So people were like, oh man, it's kind of like watching the dub, but kind of shitty, but it's pretty good. And I'm like, you know what? I'll take that, because I was just really psyched that people were enjoying it, and I kept going, and I made a lot of amazing friends just through that abridging community that kind of developed around Martin.
And see, it's funny that you said that, because that is actually how I saw your channel as well. Like all of us, after school or after a game, I come home and I turn on YouTube, and those were the abridged shows that I would watch. I think from a lot of fans, like you just said, they loved how you resembled some of the characters, but then also too, I think they were just lost in the world of what you put out there. They actually felt like they were just watching a fun show with a slice of nostalgia put into that too. But
nostalgia is a big part of why a bridge series blew up. Like it's probably the part. It's a fact. But yeah.
But see, then, and it's all thanks to, and if any of you guys don't know, back in February, Totally Not Mark interviewed TeamFourStar about the history of their channel. If you guys
I think I was there for that. Yeah.
If y'all want to learn about the history of TeamFourStar, please follow him. But for you, what made you commit to even start something like that with them? Because in the end, they're strangers.
They did start out as strangers, but then again, so does everybody,
right?
Until you get to know them. I got to know Kaiser because when he started doing his Lupin the Third abridged, that shit was next level. Like his level of editing was like he would lip flap the characters. I'm just like, what? How does he do that? What? He took the time. No, stop it. You're making it harder. And then there was Taka, who at the time was working with a guy named Cheeseman Joe. They formed Idlit Studios, which stands for I Don't Like Iced Tea, which is weird because if you've ever been around Taka, he'll drink an iced tea. I don't understand the name of that ever. But they started doing G Gundam abridged, and Taka is one of the most social people I have ever met. I'm a bit of an introvert, maybe an ambivert. I don't know, but I'm not the kind of person that reaches out. Taka, however, will always go and talk to a bunch of people just to say like, hey, how are you doing? Hey, I like this that you did. I like that. He is a networking monster. And he reached out to me eventually, and we started chatting. He'd pull me into these late night Skype calls with a bunch of other abridgers in the community. It basically exploded after a point. Like it was probably around the time, like just before Google acquired YouTube, like around then, like sometime in 2008.
Oh man,
and Oh yeah, it's been a hot minute. And I had reached out. The one person I did reach out to was Kaiser after the Lupin videos, and I'm like, holy shit, what you've done is insane. And he fanboyed out a little bit because he was kind of inspired by the shit I was doing. I'm like, no, don't be inspired by me. He's like, well, I'm gonna do better. I'm like, you're already doing better. Shut up. So Hitaka and I would eventually be kind of like a core three that would end up talking to each other a lot at night. And eventually one night there came a lull in our conversation, and Taka just kind of like leaned over to Kaiser and he's like, or kind of like whispered to Kaiser, like, dude, why don't you ask him? And Kaiser's like, well, I don't think that's the right time. Dude, just ask him. Well, I don't really want to. So I'm just saying, like, ask me what? And Kaiser stammered out, I know that you, Vegeta, and Masako are currently working on the Dragon Ball Z movies in an abridged format. Because we were, like, you know, Vegeta, Masako, and myself, we were also pretty tight. We had been working on the abridged movies. I think we made 2 of them under the label Neighborhood Cluck Productions. I don't know if anybody can find them anymore.
That was the name?
Some of the,
I don't remember that name at all.
It was a hot, like, this is back in 2008. So odds are it has been completely scrubbed from the internet. I know they aren't on my channel anymore. So if there's an archive out there that exists, they're awful. I edited them, so I'm sorry. And there are a couple of jokes here and there that I'm still kind of proud of, but it's not good. So Kaiser asked, you know, we were thinking maybe doing Dragon Ball Z as a group. Would you be interested? So I sat there and I'm like, Kaiser, with your level of editing and the fact that you love Dragon Ball, and Kaiser loves Dragon Ball. Like, he is a Dragon Ball boy. I have learned more about Dragon Ball by osmosis from listening to him than I possibly could by just scrubbing the wikis.
Dang.
Like,
that's like a
I will
encyclopedia. Wow.
Yeah. I will destroy at Dragon Ball Trivia Night just because I have talked to him enough, basically. And so I said to them, okay, I'm super down for this, but I have 2 conditions. I get to be on the writing team, and I get to play Vegeta, because I hadn't gotten a chance to in the little abridged movies yet, and I was really proud of my Vegeta impression. Plus, at that point in time, I had enough, like, you know, internet clout being the guy amongst the 3 of us that had the most subscribers. So my EP was the biggest, that I could actually make these kinds of demands.
Let me go.
So yeah, basically, that's kind of how it happened.
With that, and with the evolution of the channel, you did the movies, right? Started with the movies, and then you guys just started to do the episodes, right?
Yep, Kaiser. That's when TeamFourStar formed. TeamFourStar started doing the episodes.
So, when for you, because like I said before that, you said that, you know, everyone's a stranger before we meet up and they become friends. So, when then did you feel 100% comfortable to be like, you know what? Yeah, we can do this. We can definitely fully do this.
I think by the time that I had agreed to, you know, work on DBZ Abridged, I had already pretty much considered them friends. But over the years that followed, you know, working week in, week out with each other, chatting like far into the dark and sometimes the lights of the early morning, we kind of grew to become brothers, basically. Like, those guys, I could not have been prouder to have had them, you know, standing up beside me as I was getting married. Like, they are as much a brother to me as my own, you know, brother by blood that I was raised with by this point.
That's deep. That's love right there. Wow, I like that, man.
Yeah,
and that tells you a lot what you think about them.
No, I genuinely love those dudes.
And with that, the evolution of what you guys were doing, because as the doc showed, it exploded off something that I don't think you guys thought it would be that popular.
Nobody can ever expect something like that. I mean, we're just like a bunch of nerds making a bunch of comedy dubs on the internet. We didn't expect it to come anywhere near to exploding the way it did. It's kind of, hard to believe because we would joke a lot in the early days about how what if we get invited out to conventions and stuff like that because we're just a bunch of little weeby nerds. And then eventually we actually get invited out to a convention. Like they were going to fly us out there. They were going to pay for our rooms, pay for our food. And we're just like, what, really? Like feeling almost kind of guilty about this. Like, what, huh? And the fact that people actually turned out to like come and meet us at these things blew our goddamn minds. Like we had lines waiting to get into a room to listen to us talk.
Now that is something that, again, not a lot of people will ever experience. And for you guys who were legit fans, you're nerds, but also fans of what you're doing and fans of the show as a whole. And now you're doing, when you did something you're doing for fun,
Yeah,
but the rewards is reaping in from the success of what you guys are doing. Like, that's a lot to take in. Like how were you even able to take that when it was coming at you?
it was definitely a process. I still remember our first convention, Youmacon 2009. At that time, I was literally the only person on our team with any form of stage experience, like,
Right.
Being in front of a live crowd. We've all talked behind a microphone out into the void of the internet, but looking out and seeing actual people staring back at you is different. Very, very different. Like, it is a whole other vibe. So, for a lot of the people up there, it was a huge adjustment period. So I kind of took it on myself for like the first couple of conventions we went to, the first couple of panels that we ran, to just ease everybody into it and kind of MC them. Just make sure there's a flow going, make sure
Right.
everybody's feeling all right. Because at the time, I was the only one that had any experience. But to watch as everybody kind of got more used to the crowd, more used to, cracking wise back to people that are asking questions. It's like any sort of muscle. The more you work at it, the stronger it gets. Like when you're trying to build any form of habit, the more you participate in the activity, the easier and more natural it becomes and seems. So as this went on, we all started kind of getting back to the same level there. And it's never something you can be immediately prepared for, but it is something that you can get better at as you go.
And do you feel like that's what happened with you guys, with the more times they invited you to places, that you guys just felt like in your zone and you guys just fully got comfortable on what you were doing?
Definitely, because when we were first starting to get invited out, started getting invited out to conventions, we were really kind of nervous. Like we weren't really sure, what like sort of value we were actually bringing to these cons. But as we got there and as we started seeing these lines of people showing up to like listen to some jerk offs that made a fan dub of a 20-some-year-old cartoon at that point, we started to realize exactly what we were pulling, and we started to get like more confident, not only with the crowds that were showing up, but with the conventions that were asking us to show up. Like there were times early on where they'd pack us, however many of us they'd bring. Usually it'd be Kaiser Taka and myself, maybe one or two other people. There were a few conventions early on that would, try to pack us all into one room, maybe get us an extra futon for the other people to sleep on. But then we were like, you know what? No, I think each of us kind of deserves our own space. We provide a value to you guys. We kind of deserve value in return, et cetera, et cetera. We started feeling more confident in ourselves, what we brought to these places. And it's, yeah, like anything, it's a process. Like, you kind of grow, you learn more as you do.
That, and right there, that's just a lot. That you guys knew your worth. You knew what you brought to the table, and then you fully say, hey, look, if we bring this much, we deserve this. We deserve boom this. And
Yeah.
not a lot of people do that because, again, the fear of saying that, well, we don't want to step on anybody's toes. But then the double-edged sword is like, but look what we're bringing in, and it's not being selfish. That's just being truth. I speak with Nick Landis. My name is Ronald Smith, and this, I can imagine the journey of what you guys started this thing as, and then what it was growing to be. But on the outside, how was your family taking all this? Because like anything on the internet, you need some other things to keep you going.
Mm.
Nothing in life is cheap. Nothing is free. So, what were you able to do for yourself to keep you afloat during all this? And also, what were your families thinking about you in this new path that you were taking?
Early on, when we first started TeamFourStar, I was still going to college down in Minneapolis. Just kind of working on this stuff in the evenings, part time, because we didn't draw a dime from DBZA,
Right.
and so it's basically a big glorified hobby at that point. It wasn't until we started doing some of the gameplay videos and making some of the shirts that we even started seeing like a little bit of income coming in. But that wouldn't be for like a few years after that. My family has always been very supportive of my creative side. As long as I'm happy in life, and as long as I'm, able to take care of myself and able to move forward, they're pretty happy about what is going on. It wasn't until I dropped out of college after, coming to terms with the fact that, okay, I'm kind of already in a position in my quote unquote career where the stuff that I'm going to college for, which at the time was basically film production or theater, I don't think a piece of paper is going to help me more at this point than the actual experience I'm getting kind of working in the field that I'm going for. So I dropped out to, save money because, you're blowing.
College ain't
Yeah,
cheap. Oof.
it ain't. You're blowing money every year on those 4-year universities. My mom started getting worried about that. I kind of placated her by going to a technical college afterwards, where I actually learned significantly more that would help me in the field I was in than in the 4-year college I was going to. I cannot stress enough that if you have some skills that you're looking to polish up, a technical school is way better for you. Because I learned how to edit in there. I learned how to audio engineer there. I learned how to work basically an entire camera like studio setup. I learned so much from my technical college that I was able to just kind of like move on my own. And for a while, I produced some videos on Blip, just kind of reviewing anime and stuff like that back when that was a thing. And started making like a little bit of money here and there, started dabbling in Let's Plays. And all this while, because eventually I dropped out of the technical school too, because I'm not a good student, because I'm trying to focus more on what I see as my future. My mom starts getting kind of upset. Like, you're not going anywhere. You're not doing the things that you should be doing to get ahead in life. And at the time I was currently managing at like a men's warehouse. I was a pretty good salesman. If you're decent at acting, you can be pretty damn good at salesmanship. I think that's a good trade-off there. I was a manager at a men's warehouse for a few years when I decided, we started to make enough money from the Let's Plays and stuff, all the tertiary and secondary stuff that we were making that was supported by, DBZA being so beloved by so many people, that I was able to quit that job too. And that is when my mom started to kind of like freak out. Like, you can't do that. You can't just quit your job. You can't do that. It wasn't until she saw my tax returns for that year, when I had earned more than her, my brother, and my father, that she was like, oh, never mind then. Because I don't think she realized the kind of money that can be made in YouTube. If you find your niche and you find like a community that's as awesome as the one that kind of grew around us, which I have no idea how we fostered that, but god damn it, do I feel like one of the most blessed sons of bitches on earth, that are like so supportive and amazing and will literally wait in line for an hour to see you at a convention. It's like there is resources that can be tapped there by making like just a few videos a week on a gaming channel even.
But I think also, I think your mother has the reaction of like a lot of parents would, because like you said, to this day, I don't think parents still understand about YouTube or just about how the internet works, about people who find a life and a career off it. So, because a lot of them are still in the old school way of saying that you need to work these jobs to make a living. You need to do this, that, and the third.
Yeah, you need that 9 to 5.
Right. So, but you took a lot to yourself, because I can imagine if at any point during that, like, did you ever feel like maybe she's right. Like maybe I should stay more committed. But you kept saying no. I know I can do this.
Always been fairly pragmatic about, what the risk versus reward is. And when I decided to finally like quit my job at Men's Warehouse, I knew it was because I was going to be moving down to Dallas to start this company proper with Kaiser and some of my other friends down here. And I knew we'd kind of have to like, tighten the old belt straps for a couple of months while we got things up and running, got things set up, and made sure that we kept pumping stuff out in order to fuel that. And yeah, it was like, sometimes you're going month to month on paycheck to paycheck. And every year when tax season rolls around, anybody who is self-employed knows the pain of not having saved up enough in a savings account to pay off your income tax for that year.
Never easy.
So there have been a couple of times where it's just been like, oh God.
I know the feeling.
I knew that worst case scenario, if this fell flat, if it didn't work out, if I couldn't do this full time, I could still go out, get a job selling shit. Like that's always something that I've felt comfortable that I'm able to do should everything just kind of fall away. I have these other skills that I know I can fall back on, luckily. I was able to, build those up over years. I still have references that I can tap into, but I lose nothing by trying. And that's kind of important, especially if it's where your passion lies. There's a phrase in Japanese called ikigai, which is the combination of something that you're passionate about, something that you're good at, something that can make you money, something that people need. People need entertainment. I feel like I'm a pretty entertaining person at times. I can point to some examples, I guess. I feel like I'm good at it, and there's money there. So, and of course, it's something that I love to do. So I feel like what I've stumbled into is my ikigai. And I think that's something that's I think is important for everybody to try to strive for in their life, even if you have to support yourself doing something else for a while, because I would not trade what I've been doing, what I've been able to do for anything. It has led to like so much growth, so much happiness, so many fond memories, some sad memories, but you take the good with the bad with everything. If there was an English translation, I think it would be vocation.
What you said is very. And anyone who's listening to this, I think you can take a lot from that. Because I think a lot of people are also dealing with finding what to keep them driven and to drive them to continue to do something that they're passionate about, but also conflicted about. Well, I'm not making anything out of it, so why should I keep doing it?
It's a hard question you got to ask yourself when you're like, and the point of that is actually that something that a lot of people aren't like able to be comfortable with is the fact that it's okay to fail at something that you want to succeed in.
Very true.
And it's never truly a failure until you just stop trying.
That's very true, man. Like that's very, very true. But I want to take what you just said right there, because that kind of goes into this part right here. Because something that you and your team did in TeamFourStar, and look, it was a huge thing to say and to put out there, knowing what reaction could it be. When you guys said that the last episode of TeamFourStar was going to just be after the Cell Saga and the fight between Gohan and Cell. That was it.
Yeah.
And at the time, because after the episode, you guys put out that there will be the next season, the Boo Saga. And it kind of get played out of like not hints, but like just, yes, it's coming. Yes, it's coming. The Bojack will be there too. But then finally, you guys put your foot down and said, we're done. Knowing that the majority of people who are subscribed to the channels is for DBZ Abridged.
Yeah, it was a very hard decision to make, and one that we had honestly been struggling with since we started writing episode 60, because there was a part of us even then that thought, this should be the end. Like when we wrote out Goku's speech about, things are going to change, I don't really want to come back yet. That was very much us talking to the audience. And it was a very late edition that we have since removed, that to be continued in season 4. We cut that from the video using the YouTube editor. We regret that heavily, because at the time we did intend to keep going forward. And it wasn't until we started working on the BoJack script, after we had finished the Kai abridged scripts for, the Cell Saga and Android Saga,
right,
that we realized exactly how burnt out we were and how much of a fitting ending we actually believed the episode 60 to have been. And more burned out than any of us was Kaiser. Mm-hmm. And if Kaiser is burned out and does not want to and is going to not put his all into DBZA, it's not going to be the same. And when you combine that with a lot of external factors, there was a big thing going on around Twitter lately about how people in the fan dubbing world aren't looked at and respected the same way that people who have, pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and marched in line to get into the profession the way they're quote unquote supposed to. And a lot of the people we worked with were starting to get affected by that, in terms of the kind of work they were able to get and the type of stuff that they were being turned down for. And we didn't want to put that sort of pressure on them, because, I know that there are a number of studios that I will never work with because I've taken the direction that I've taken. But I've also been given a lot of opportunities because of the direction I've taken. But I'm not the one that's being affected. The people who we hire to work on these shows are. And so we started having people that are like, I don't feel comfortable doing this. I don't think I can be in this anymore. And all of a sudden, even if we really wanted to work on DBZA season 4, it would be a very different production, just because of the amount, just because of some of the people that we wouldn't be able to bring in. And that was really a more recent nail in that coffin. One that had been ongoing, but it is nothing but cemented the fact that we had to make that call. And we knew that people were going to be unhappy about that. We're still feeling the aftershocks of that. There are people that are unwilling to give our current videos a chance. And you know what? That's their decision. They feel hurt by, being led on by us. And they should. They absolutely should. We did a terrible job at messaging in what we were doing, what we were thinking, and what we were planning, when in the years prior, we had been very open and honest with everybody. And while we were trying to be open and honest with everybody, in letting people know that this is done, this is why, it was kind of a too little too late kind of thing. And now it kind of feels like we're in a bit of a damage control mode, because I don't know, we have genuinely hurt a lot of people. Some probably a little more hurt than they should be, but that's not for me to say.
But I can imagine for you, because I know also too, you guys have also dealt with YouTube as a whole. How many times your channel's been shut down, and you guys that trying to build up other things to keep you guys afloat, as you said before. But what you said too, because you knew the consequences, and you said you guys are still being affected by it.
Yep.
And with the process of trying to rebuild the relationship of the people that were hurt by it, do you then also feel of the time where you guys were trying to fight through those burnouts, those times where you guys were like, I don't want to do this anymore?
Yeah, there were a number of real burnout periods for us. There was a time where we thought about ending DBZA after Goku went Super Saiyan, after the Frieza saga.
Right.
like that was the first big decision, because we were like thinking about, trying to put some of our money together and making like a pilot to kind of like pitch out there to like networks and things like that. Not that we had like any connections that or any know-how of how to do that at the time, but it was a pipe dream that we had, like trying to focus on other things. Because even back then, back in, I think that was like 2011 or so, it was a hot minute ago, that we knew that the idea of abridging Dragon Ball was always going to be finite. Eventually, the copyright system was going to become so opaque that there was no way we'd be able to get around it, which, as time has gone on, it has in fact gotten harder and harder to repeal anything, which at the moment, we're very lucky that our videos, like every single one of them, had already been pulled and processed and then basically reinstated by the old system, that they can't be affected by the new one.
Wow.
We got very lucky that we were able to work with that old system rather than the system that is currently in place, which is way harder to get through.
Oh, it's annoyance to a T.
Yeah. So, like, if we were starting DBZA now, we would never have made it to 2030. Let's put it that way. So there was the burnout of fighting that system, combined with the idea that, we have so many like other things that we want to work on, that we want to lend our writing towards, things that we can say like, this is ours. We did this. Nobody else has a hand in it. And some of that is, kind of folly. We know that DBZ as a property is, so popular, so well remembered, that it no doubt played a part in DBZA going over and having people love it. Like we said, nostalgia is the biggest part of abridging.
Right.
But we still wanted to be able to try. And right now we're kind of forced into that position where we're playing around with a lot of new things. And that's kind of just where we have to be right now.
And I think with some of the fans, I think they got it eventually, while others I think just will never get, and you can't please everybody. But
yeah,
you and your friends said you looked at not only your employees, but also your friends' future lives, and you were like, we know how the business is, and it's sad that they put down the stuff that we do, but we don't want to be the reason that you guys can't continue to grow in your life. And you said, all right, let's do it. Let's say that we're done with this.
Yeah, we agonized a lot over that decision, because we knew that DBZA was that keystone thing that we kind of like built the rest of the building around. Removing that, everything kind of starts to topple and fall, but we felt confident in our ability to do so. And then COVID hit,
Ooh.
And that really shot a lot of things back.
Now, just with that, because look, it's affected everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's plans, everyone's situations was completely wrecked with what's been going on. So what have you guys been dealing with COVID?
We haven't been able to get back into our studio because nobody feels safe about being in a group for so long. We don't have the means by which that we can actually perform the jobs that we want to do in a close proximity to each other, but still adhere to the local rules for doing so. So we've had to do pretty much everything remotely, which has made doing Let's Plays together basically impossible. All the gaming stuff that we were able to do when we were in close proximity is very difficult to do, because now it has to be okay, somebody we all basically have to be streaming it together. And that's a completely different feel from what we usually had. So everything all at once kind of changed. Furthermore, the biggest thing it disrupted for us was the production of the little live action series that we were working on that was so goddamn fun to produce, unabridged. We were two filmed episodes away from having our first season done. And then it hit, and then we couldn't get in there to film. And it's just a really shitty situation to be in, especially when, when it rains, it pours.
Right.
just ending DBZA, and then all this hits at once. It's like, well, shit, what now? So we're still kind of scrambling to figure out what now.
My name is Ronald E. Smith. I'm speaking with Nick Landis, and that's a lot. That is a lot just to take in less in a short amount of time. And I can imagine the stress that you guys are putting yourselves in, especially the risks you guys have put in for yourself. But for you, fully, how have you taken all this? Like, how have you been able to keep yourself uplifting and able to keep yourself moving?
It's funny that you use the phrases uplifting and moving, because all while this was going on, personal life wise, I've been I basically separated from my wife of 5 years, and so in the phrase when it rains it pours. Now I'm tackling like all this emotional stuff. Like I was basically just kind of a shell for a hot minute for like because we decided to call it off near the actually about a year ago now. Is when all that started to hit in. So I had been processing it, and then finally I feel like I'm kind of getting a step back up. I just went out to California to have like done a little bit of work out there. I come back, boom, lockdown, COVID, everybody gets separated. You're not allowed to see people now.
Ugh.
So I'm just like sitting here, just like, well, shit. now I'm alone and doing this, so that's fun. So it literally everything in my life changed all in the course of about 8 months. And I'm obviously in a better place right now than I was about a year ago, and even like 5 months ago when all this started. But it's led to basically me just kind of like sitting back and focusing, okay, what am I doing? What can I do? What do I want to do? Where do I want to go from here? It's led through a very long, insightful, like kind of meditative process for me, where I came out the other side just wanting to be more hands-on with everything at TFS again. Because for a hot minute, I'd been fairly hands-off while I've been dealing with so much of this stuff. And now I'm like focusing back in, thinking like, okay, so other than the dragon shorts, which we can still produce, other than the little animated things, other than the abridged anime in some minutes, what can we be doing? And I've been pouring a majority of my time into essentially creating a tabletop RPG that we can use for our next tabletop campaign, because that's something I just have a passion for.
And look, first of all, it takes a lot to just fully just let it all out about the things that personally that we were affected by. I mean, because look, we all are dealing with something, but to talk about that, that says a lot about you. But something that you said back in 2018, I think also sums up too about people who are also still dealing with things, especially with this year, a lot. When you back then you brought up about bubble.
Mm-hmm.
I think that phrase you were using because you were just talking about your growth, your journey with it, and also too when you also talked about your journey through weight loss.
Yeah.
And again, both are connected with each other to what's going on today, because we are only can control what is in front of us. Everything else is just out of our control.
Yeah, we all have our sphere of influence. Some people have like a slightly larger sphere than others that like, you can like throw a message out there, more people will kind of glom onto it. But ultimately, the only thing you ever have direct control over are your own actions. Should there not be something medically wrong with you, because then, seek help immediately, please.
Right.
Ultimately, we all have control over how we process things, the choices that we make. Those are the things that truly matter, and those are the only things that we can do to better our situation. To go into it a little more, explain bubble a little bit, because you brought it up. It's kind of a personal mantra of mine. Bubble stands for better you, better life, which is just the idea that no matter where you are in life, whether you're already kind of like way up high, like you're feeling great, or whether you're at your rock bottom, there's always choices and decisions that you can make that can affect your life in a positive way. And the idea is to, strive to become the ideal you. It's the self-improvement hustle that I've lived by for a few months, and it definitely came in as a big test over the last year through all the stuff that I had been processing. Basically, all of that was the ultimate test of what I was playing through there, like what I was trying to go through or what I was trying to go for.
So, right now, then, where does Nick hope to see himself down the road in 5 years, 10 years? Like, with everything that has happened and what's happening right now, and through the evolution of the world is changing, what do you hope to achieve and gain for yourself?
5 years, 10 years. I'll be honest. In the entire restructuring that my life goals have taken over the past year, that vision was very, very hazy for me, and it's still a little hazy. But I've been able to, try to pick up pieces and put together where I'd like to be. Within 10 years, I'd like to have a family. I've definitely got to put myself back out there, but I realized that one of the reasons that I've been going through this self-improvement journey in my young adulthood is that I want to be able to pass on my knowledge in some way, shape, or form, and I want to be a father. I want to be a good dad. Career-wise, right now I'm still trying to figure out where TeamFourStar is as a group, but personally, I'm trying to focus more and more on, trying to get more into live action acting, which is a insanely competitive field, but it's a passion of mine. And as I was saying earlier, you lose nothing by trying.
Exactly.
So it's something that I'm currently striving for. It's one of the reasons that I've been trying to build myself and work out as much and lose as much weight as I have, because that requires a certain level of physicality. And unfortunately, in the climate that we live in, it does require a certain look, which as a person, I've never really had. At my worst, I think I was at about 300 pounds. Right now, I'm floating at about 210. So
come on, man. That ain't nothing to wrong about. That's
I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Fantastic.
Especially considering 13 years ago, I was essentially chair bound after breaking my back. So yeah, very long journey there. So I'm still striving towards that. I'm thinking that at some point in the next 5 years, I'm going to be commuting between here and California to try to pursue that more and more. That's where I'm at. And somewhere between that 1 year and 10-year mark, I don't think that love is something that should ever be given up on. If you don't believe in love, then I don't think there's really a point, While my wife and I are separating and going through this process, there's no animosity there. We realized that we were in a situation that was fairly codependent and unhealthy for the both of us. We both had very different directions that we wanted to go. And while it's been a hard process, it's been a fairly healthy one. And I still care about her. I still love her. But it just can't be the way it was. And I'll always care about her. And I still want to be her friend. But I need to be open to the possibility of others. And that's something I also need to push for. That's where I'm at.
But like you said before, the scariest thing is to put ourselves out there. All of us deal with that. I know I can relate to you so much, man. But
nothing in this world is that nothing is as vulnerable as that feeling of exposing your heart to somebody else.
Yes. Oh,
because
so
you want to guard it. You want to guard it so hard. But if you do that, you're never going to be able to feel the other side,
And it takes what? It takes the first step to do it. You won't know until you do it.
Takes the first step, and while the pain of rejection is certainly a sore one, it is a pain that is worth bearing in order to try. You lose nothing by trying,
100%.
except a little bit of discomfort in the short term.
That's the truth. My name is Ronald E. Smith. I've been having a fantastic conversation with Nick Landis. And Nick, before we cast off from each other, and I just want to again thank you for this talk. This has been a very, very motivational but also uplifting conversation with each other.
Absolutely, man. I've been loving it. Hell, like this is great. You're doing awesome, by the way.
Thank you,
Like,
brother.
you've asked some like really good questions, and I've just been having a great time just talking your ear off.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate this so much. But just before we go, if you want to look, because I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, 12 years ago, for 12 years, you guys were going with TeamFourStar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 13 years ago, you dealt with your injury.
Yep. Yeah, about 13 years and 6 months, I believe, was when I first broke my back.
Now, just with those two, from everything that TeamFourStar's been, and how you've came through that one point when you said it was a dark period in your time, fast forward to now, and even with when you guys had to stop with TeamFourStar, the DBZ Abridged, looking back all this as a whole, do you have any regrets?
Oh, dozens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
There are decisions that I've made, social media posts that I've made that have like really hurt the feelings of some people in some pretty high places that I didn't realize. You know, like I meant as a joke, but yeah. Then there are like business decisions that I've made that didn't pan out. There are choices that I made in my personal life that haven't panned out, but it's those lessons and those failures that make us who we are. We don't grow as people if we don't fuck up every now and again. It's the scars that make the muscle grow stronger.
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah, so there are plenty of things I regret. Plenty of things that, like, late at night, you're laying down. Oh, God, I did do that. We all have those. We all have those. And those will never go away. But that's the human condition. And that's something you got to accept. You can't change what has happened. You can only learn from what has happened and decide to do from what you have now.
And as of now, what can Nick Landis say to himself, to the person that was depressed and injured and not knowing what he wanted to do at the time?
Don't sign up for Twitter, Jack. If I could like write a letter to myself, sitting in the darkness of that room, thinking about ending it all, I don't think I'd write a damn thing. Because if I did, I would not have discovered all of the amazing things. I wouldn't want to spoil it. I wouldn't want to spoil the journey ahead. Sure, I'd love to reassure myself, but everything that I am now came from that boiling pot of depression and emotion that happened back then. And if there's one thing I hate more than anything else, as a pet peeve, it's spoilers. So if I were to say anything, I'd say have fun. And then I'd look at it back then and I'd think I'm a cynical asshole and I'd say, fuck you.
I love that, man. And this is what we always do at the end, is the shout out time. When we give love and appreciation to people who have lifted us up and have been by our side when we couldn't walk any further. So,
I like that.
The floor is yours. Go on and do it.
Of course, of all the people that have supported me, I gotta say I love my mama. I love my brother. They're both still up there in Plymouth. Love my dad for providing all of the stuff that really got me into loving all of this. Like I would not be doing what I'm doing if it weren't for the influence that my dad had on my younger life. And obviously, Taka, Kaiser, those guys are my brothers. Absolutely amazing. My ex, Erica, she is probably the greatest lesson I've ever had in life. I care for her deeply. I still love her, and I wish her the best. One of my my friend Caitlin, who I'll shout out because she's starting on that Twitch stream and she's trying to get out there. Boobs McBallrog, Caitlin, you're amazing. You've been insanely supportive over this very trying time for me. Love her dearly as well. Of course, I want to thank you, Ron, for bringing me on here. Like, this has been an awesome conversation, so big shout out to you as well.
Thank you, brother.
And to everybody out there who has ever let my voice into their ears voluntarily, and for those that have come back for more after it got forced upon you, I'm sorry. Thank you, everybody out there, for the immense support, the amazing community, anybody that's out there that, comes on our streams, goes to our videos, that supports us in any way, shape, or form. Thank you all so much, because this journey would never have been possible without each and every one of you.
And that is 100% the truth. My name is Ronald E. Smith. This is Nick Landis, aka Lanipator. And y'all, I think we just got real. Thank you very much. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you.